Now, hello everybody. Happy Monday. Peaceful Monday. I hope you're having a peaceful start of the week. I hope you had a peaceful weekend. And we're ready to discuss everything that happened throughout this weekend, also today, what will be happening from now on. Who knows, but we're going to discuss it. Yes? Okay, good. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you again for commenting, for participating, for being part of this whole conversation. This really makes my day, and I really count on you to be part of this. So please don't be too shy to comment, ask questions, or answer even the questions. We all talk together. Hey Sean, you're making my day right away here. Woohoo! What a better way to start the week than to spend some quality. Oh, thank you. Really made my day or made my week. Thank you so much, Sean. I appreciate it so much. Okay, I'm late because Trump was late, and I was trying to figure out with him meeting with the Democrats, is there anything coming together or not? So let's start here. The latest what we hear is that there is no progress made as for now. Democrats don't want to, of course, to lead up to the point where the government will be shutting down. But what's at stake is essentially our medical system, our insurance, the premiums going up to by $1,000 on average. And altogether, the Republican Party, the GOP, and specifically the White House, not willing to address that as an issue, as a self-provoked crisis that we will be facing come January 1st. Perhaps you're one of those, or perhaps you have heard or not even heard about folks receiving letters that their Medicare, Medicaid will be suspended. Some companies are ceasing to operate in that spectrum starting January 1st. So the Democrats want to have at least a conversation, and they want to have in writing a promise to tackle this issue before the year expires. So all of that sounds actually logical. And so they're standing their ground. I personally do hope they will be standing their ground. Who knows? We saw a lot of flippy-floppy situations with Democrats, but also with the GOP. Obviously, Republicans do need Democratic voices to pass that CR, right? So we will see. Tomorrow they will be voting again, and we'll see by tomorrow 5 p.m. whenever I go live. We're probably going to have a more clear picture. As for now, yes, Schumer and Jeffries met with Trump at the Oval Office. Supposed to be at 3 p.m. happened much later, hence I'm delayed here, but there was not much achieved in that conversation. So we will see again what will this come down to. Now, as to what White House does, it sends a lot of press releases blaming the Democrats for willing to shut down the government, for advocating to seize all the federal services and institutions. The Congressional Library is sending, for instance, reminders that I recently received on my email saying everything will be shut down, get ready, and all that. Deservingly so, they're just getting prepared. But it is not on Democrats to be blamed, right, for it. So obviously that's why I'm not showing you those press releases, because they're it's a disinformation, to put it this way. Yes? Okay, so let's discuss everything that did happen today. I understand, yes, Netanyahu was in Washington, D.C., and met with Trump at the Oval Office. It was a lot of conversation there. So we're going to dive in. I have complete readouts about those 20 steps to peace in the Middle East, or more so, Trump Gaza. So we're going to dive into it. We're going to see, is it realistic? Is it not? And what's actually real? Okay, so, but first, since today's Monday and we saw each other on Friday, I would love to also talk about what happened throughout the weekend. So, hi, Bonnie. Hello. Hello. So nice to see you here. Now, let's discuss what happened throughout the weekend, too. So, let's talk about Finland and Germany and the Russian drones, right? Because that's a big issue. It's not just about Russian drones per se. It's really Russia violating territorial integrity of now not just Ukraine, with whom they're fighting for years now, and targeting specifically and killing civilians, but they're now violating territorial integrity of various states that are part of NATO, not part of NATO, part of EU, not part of EU, but all together, they're broadening this incursion, so to speak, or well, yeah, let's call it incursion for now. So, as to Finland and Germany and Russian drones, President of Finland, Alexander Stubb, who I think is very straightforward and all that, kind of flipped a little bit here. He says that he's stressing that Europe is not at war with Russia. Now, this is a questionable situation. So if somebody is constantly provoking you and you're not responding, you're like, no, I'm not at war. And somebody's still picking on you. You're like, I'm not at war. And they start shooting at you. What are you waiting for to be then officially at war with somebody? Right? So then the question is, what we discussed weeks ago when the first drones flew over Poland, right? Remember, there were over 90 drones. A bunch of them got shot by Ukrainians, and about 2 dozen did make into Polish airspace. And so the question there was, shall we shut it down or not, right? So one thing, and that's where we need to really draw a line, right, between definitions and rules, right? Because if we will see the rules that we, and I'm talking about countries, right, that we as countries did impose, voted on, agreed upon, if we will agree to see all that as one large gray zone, right, which what we're seeing now with the Trump administration, for instance, internally, right? Rules for thee, not for me, right? For you, this applies. For me, this does not. So it creates this gray zone. So if we get into this gray zone as to, well, this is not provocation, but then what is provocation? We need to stick to few rules. Why do you put a lock on your door? Because you don't want anybody who you don't know, whom you did not invite to enter your home, right? Now, if somebody enters your home, walks around and just leaves, and you're like, oh, they weren't shooting, so that wasn't intrusion, this was just whatever, because they didn't do anything to me, that's okay. Would you be okay with this? I don't know about you, but I wouldn't. That's why I put a lock or several locks on my door. So in order to protect your space, you're protecting your space. Now, if somebody comes to your home, starts, hurting you, your loved ones, God forbid, and you have to respond, now you are responding to a threat. You are responding to aggression. This is a whole very different definition. Protecting your territory and responding to aggression, those are two different things. For instance, if you're part of United Nations Peace Corps and you travel someplace, right? And you're there as a peacekeeper. And yes, per law, you can only shoot if you're being shot at. Okay, so you're on defense. Now, but if you're part of the defense of your own country, right? If you're a commander-in-chief overseeing this defensive structure, then you are protecting your territory. Then you're shooting any intruder who really, stepping into your territory. You can warn them. You can have several warnings because you do have, again, rules to impose warnings. If you play football or soccer, right? That's why you have yellow card, red card. There is rules. So if we start seeing those rules as some type of, gray zone, buying somebody's out of their malicious actions because we say, oh, that wasn't intentional. Now, if somebody commits, let's say, murder, right? And it might be intentional, it might not be intentional. This is still murder. They will be prosecuted. Now, the sentence will differ if it was malicious, if it was intentional, if they prepared for it, or it was accidental. But it will not excuse them from facing consequences. Correct? So let's keep those rules as they are, because once we start renegotiating, what's right, what's left, what's up, what's down, what's this because it's that, then we start getting into the gray zone, which is then used by those whose idea is to impose this vacuum of information, this type of disinformation, gaslighting, where we will start questioning ourselves. And am I ticking right? Are you ticking right? Are you my friend? Are we not? Blah, right? So then all this chaos will be used by those malicious actors, who are, in this case, of course, Russia. But then if you zoom out a little bit, China, right? China is very much an advantage from all of this, shit show. Back to Finland. President Stubb stressed that Europe is not at war with Russia and urged EU leaders to remain calm when deciding whether to shoot down unidentified air targets. Let's stop here for a sec. I understand if somebody is not, or something is not identified. Okay, you want to identify it, you don't want to shoot it down. Okay, well, you give it a bit of time. But Shahed drones have been very much defined, have been very much killing Ukrainians. We know what they are capable of. We know what they can do. We know that one time is accident, 2, 3, 4, 5 times high. It's a strategy. Go back to Stop. He says, I will not issue an immediate order to kill Russian soldiers. Now he's stepping to soldiers. If they violate our national borders, the most important thing in this matter is to remain calm and not cross borders, Stubb said. Well, are you inviting now Russian soldiers to step into Finland? Then please answer this question. Why are you mining the border? Why did you guys in Finland close the border about a year ago? Where Russians, that's why they're buying bikes at the border, because you can only cross by bike, not by car, and they end up with like a whole, bunch of bikes there once they cross the border. So again, we're getting into a murky zone that is very much not murky. Borders are very clearly defined. And, not to get into the Bible or anything, but, the story with pigs and, the swine and the pearls and all that story. So you cannot be very intellectual and decent and tuti-ta-ta with barbarians who understand force and power and strict, rules and imposition of those rules. You can't really be ta-ti-ta-ta with those people. And we know how Russians are and who they are for years now, because they're doing this to Ukraine. So this is a very dangerous, slippery slope. Now, Finland, per Stubb, says follows special protocol for such cases and will not shoot them down immediately. Okay. Asked whether Germany would shoot down Russian drones, Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said it depends on the situation. Quote, if there is a real threat to our security, of course we would shoot them down, but it depends on the circumstances. Again, barbarians see it as weakness. You have to understand, right, who you talk to. Right? Because I can be very well-spoken in, whatever language. But if, let's say, German, but all you do is speak French, what does it matter how great my German is and how poetic I'm speaking to you? You will not understand me. Languages aside, Russians do understand English and everything, but most importantly, they understand clarity and strength. And all of this, ta-ti-ta-ta, they understand as weakness, because all you do in their eyes, from their perspective, is massaging your testicles, not willing to do anything. Now, President Zelensky of Ukraine said, he warned that Russia is testing Europe's defenses and trying to sway public opinion. Quote, if we can't protect ourselves, why should we keep supporting Ukraine? And that's sort of where we are getting into, right? Because, like, oh, what if they come to me? I can't protect myself. I should be, withholding this aid to me. And now Trump is being wiki talkie, right? Some people say, oh, tomahawks were going to go to Ukraine. They're not. They're yes. JD Vance made all this rounds on media yesterday. Altogether, there's no news. All of that noise ends with Trump will decide. I leave you with that. Now, let's continue about the drone incidents now. In Netherlands, over the weekend, part of Schiphol, this Amsterdam main airport, was closed on September 27th after multiple pilots spotted a drone at 150 meters. In Norway, a passenger flight from Oslo to Bardufoss was diverted, and Tromsø airport was temporarily closed due to drone activity. Earlier, drones were seen near Brønnøysund, sorry for butchering the name, airport, forcing another diversion. Yes? Now, Kiev obviously was under attack during this weekend. Major attack, by the way. They sent drones and missiles. Altogether, 643 of them. 611 of them were shot by Ukrainian air forces, but out of those 643 were 593 Shahed drones, 38 missiles, 8 Caliber cruise missiles, and 2 Kinjal air ballistic missiles. Now, Kiev was the main target. To visualize how this looks like, if you are a main target, maybe somebody's interested, because that's a little preview for those who act from the point of weakness. That's exactly how it looks like when everything comes to you. And as I constantly say, this circus travels. Don't think that it is very difficult to program another target. We're not talking about soldiers marching. And as much as I respect truly and wholeheartedly President Stubb, Russians are not going to march across your borders. This will be Shahed drones. Who you think are there to what? To report on weather? Now, Ukrainians did a great thing actually this morning. So there's a Ukrainian drone that cost $500. Very affordable. But it managed to take down a whole helicopter. So Mi-8 attack helicopter was downed by a $500 drone. We're just, eliminating multi-million-dollar aircraft, essentially. So they say that the return on this investment, so to speak, is 40,000%. So take a look. This is how it looked like. Here we go. So as you see here, right, it downs it, and yes, ultimately you see this completed. So great job, obviously, and that's why if you didn't watch my interview with the senior national security advisor of Taiwan, please watch it. Dr. Lee was lovable. It was just 10 minutes. Very easy to understand. It's on YouTube where you watch this. And by the way, please like and share this if you watch this. This would be very, very good. And subscribe if you can, so you will be reminded on everything else. But here, Dr. Lee was saying how Taiwan, even though they are the leaders in semiconductors, they're leaders alongside China in AI, but they're learning from Ukrainians, because he said Ukrainians have to really renovate their drones and everything they have within 2 weeks. So for that reason, really recommend you to learn more about that. Now, Russia obviously was at the UN. Horseface Lavrov was there. He was delivering a speech on Friday. Most of delegations left the room. But, everything that he said there was obnoxious, right? Obviously, NATO provoked Russia to go to war. Europe is at war with Russia. Russia is just responding. There is historical background. They're freeing Russian-speaking people. Yada, 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 blah, 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 blah. Same crap, different day. But I want to show you this video, which is kind of like, it's a murderous country. Lavrov, who became foreign minister in 2004, believe it or not, who barely seems to have, issues with walking, as you will see in a second. But he is posing for a picture with Secretary General Antonio Guterres, right? Secretary General of UN. And you think Lavrov is doing this for 21 years, right? So 21 General Assemblies. At the 21st one, he questioned, why isn't there a Russian flag behind him when they're posing for pictures, to which Guterres said, well, you're not president. Even with prime ministers, I can't put a flag. And then Guterres started kidding about Al-Qaeda and making jokes. Just, watch this with the full understanding that this is a country that has been killing civilians for 3+ years. Take a look.
This is not Russian flag.
No, because you are not president. If you would be president,
you are choosy.
You have.
Thank you.
But even for prime ministers, I cannot use the flag
Really?
according to the protocol.
Well, the protocol is a funny place.
You know the difference between the Al-Qaeda and the protocol? With Al-Qaeda, you can always talk.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't understand, the difference between Al-Qaeda and protocol. With Al-Qaeda, it always has a protocol or whatever you heard, because I couldn't, and I tried to get subtitles and I couldn't get that either. So, as to Kremlin rhetoric afterwards, Dmitry Peskov, spokesperson for Kremlin, said negotiations with Ukraine are suspended, even if U.S. Tomahawk missiles wouldn't change the battlefield. Zelensky said Ukraine will strike Russia to force them into diplomacy. Very nice. Now, as to Ukraine, jets are incoming. Ukraine will receive Swedish Gripen fighter jets for the first time. Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar confirmed additional F-16s and French Mirage aircraft are also expected, a significant expansion of Kiev's air capabilities. Good news. As to Trump and Nobel Peace Prize, Ukrainians know how to play this old instrument. He really, really wants Nobel Peace Prize. So what Ukrainians do today, Ukraine's Rada, which is parliament, have put together a new resolution nominating President Donald Trump for Nobel Peace Prize. Can you blame him? I don't think so. Okay, let's check your comments. There's some funny ones here. Sean says, it would be cool if I walked into your... Oh, good. See, that's the difference. I would never show up unannounced. See, that's the point. But good, thank you. Keep it in mind. Michael says, Hungary is acting like a neighbor who blames. Yeah, we're going to have a readout on that. Michael, yes, absolutely. And thank you for being here. Edward says, I think the cost of drone is closer to 250. They said 500, so that's what I'm reporting, but might as well. Yeah. Great job on the interview. Thank you, Sean. Thank you for watching. Lavrov is just as bad, if not worse, with Putin. Yeah, and also he has second family right here in New York City. He is traveling. He spends here time. It just we keep. That's my whole point, right? We do have rules, right? We have written rules, constitutions, borders, very defined rules. We also have civil rules, right? The way we should be behaving. And at this point, this is not applying for this is not applying for that, but it all applies for you and I. It's like, it's incredible. So that's what makes us a bit anxious. And what I fear that after time of so much shit show that we're experiencing on the daily, that we will become numb to any type of news. We'll be like, something burns, so whatever, I just hope we don't arrive at that level that we stop giving shit. Bonnie says, been getting some great interviews. Great. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you. And more interviews are coming. I emailed everybody today. So fingers crossed there will be some good interviews. Okay. Orban. Michael, you said that? Yes. You were talking about Hungary? Good. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban. He was asked, why did your drones reported by Kiev, by Zelensky, they have proof, why did Hungarian drones cross the border into Ukraine and then flew over these recently bombed American company facilities in Ukraine that Russia recently bombed? And they gathered intelligence, and then Ukrainians went all the way back and figured out Hungarian drones did gather this intelligence also before the facility was bombed. And so Orban was asked, like, what the hell? His answer is, well, Ukraine is not an independent country, not a sovereign state. It is controlled by the West. We supply it with weapons. If the West decides not to give a cent, Ukraine will shut down. Be over it. Be gone. So essentially, he sees Ukraine as a public restroom. Whenever you feel pressure, just walk in and let it go. Orban's remarks underscore his alignment with Moscow's narrative, even as other EU leaders emphasize Europe's responsibility to defend Ukraine. Now, I have another comment. European Union. Madam Ursula von der Leyen. Defund him. Defund him. This guy is able to buy Russian gas because you fund him. If you defund him, he will start owing Putin. And then maybe Putin will start negotiating with you because you're the one who pays him to pay Putin. You feel me? Just a suggestion. As to Russia's reality check, remember, well, yesterday, I hope you missed out on that, but Trump put a fake AI video about medibats or whatever you call it. That's essentially a bat. You lay in it. Jesus visits you, and you're like bushy-tailed and regrow limbs. BS. But Russia today, not the channel Russia Today, but the Russian Health Ministry had a whole seminar where their, well, equivalent to our Secretary of Health, which at this point is RFK Jr., their, well, deputy PM was there together with that Secretary of Health, their deputy prime minister PM, Tatiana Golikova. She did a whole, like a lecture there where she announced, check it out, that Russians could live to 100 to 120 years, citing fantastic numbers supposedly achieved in some regions. Critics point to poor health outcomes and low male life expectancy in Russia as evidence of propaganda spin. But she was talking, I have a video, I'm not going to show you because it's in Russian. She was like, well, because we will be living 100 years, 120 years. Putin was recently talking to Xi Jinping about organ harvesting and living up to 200 years. But altogether, they're very worried to live longer. Now, what they will face as next is a very lack of male population. So unless they're fish, when they can switch genders, when they're, have to survive and procreate, Russians will at some point go obsolete. But in terms of military draft, they're not done with it. In fact, Putin signed a decree today, launching an autumn conscription cycle, calling 135,000 recruits for the armed forces. This continues Moscow's attempt to replenish losses without formally declaring full mobilization. I mean, what could be fuller than whatever they already had? On this note, also Denmark is sending messages to anybody who is part of their reserve to be on high alert because of those drone incursions. Now, as to Europe's harder line, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk issued a stark warning. This is somebody who calls a thing, right? Remember last week, we ended up the week where he said, look, that tweet you all got excited about, where Trump promised, all this type of everything to Ukraine, and Ukraine should conquer its borders and get everything, what it lost. It ended with good luck. Yes. So he's kind of getting out of the game, so to speak. And so Tusk today is delivering another straightforward message, quote, Europe must recognize that it is already at war. We did not want it. It is sometimes strange, a new kind of war, but a war nonetheless, unquote. His remarks reflect a growing divide inside the EU. Leaders like Orban downplaying Ukraine's sovereignty, while others like Tusk push for a more unified, war-footing approach. Why? Because Poland would be fighting and Orban would be bending over. But he's doing that on the daily. Is that different? Now, as to Moldova elections, bravo, Maya Sandu. And let's just revisit what happened before. So Russia invested, and I told you that on Friday, $100 million into a propaganda extravaganza in Moldova. Why? Because if you look at the map, do I have that map? Did I forget to add it? I probably did forget to. Oh, I didn't. Okay, good. So if you can squint and see, I put little crosses. Yes, those are the pro-Russian countries. Of course, Belarus. Of course, you see Hungary, Slovakia. And there where there's like a little question mark, that's Moldova, the tiny little green thing right next to, on the lower left border of Ukraine. They needed it because they need to close the circle around Ukraine. They know they're not going to get Poland. Poland is also part of NATO. But if they could to manage to close this, right? If the Romania was on board, but remember they invested so much in propaganda in Moldova, in Romania's election, earlier this year, and then they couldn't get through. So Moldova really, really, was so useful because what? Because if you close the circle, you can then push Poland to postpone aid, because Poland is the biggest hub, right? That's how Ukraine gets aid that comes from DC and is paid for by Europeans. Now, and hopefully by Russian assets soon. They didn't succeed. They invested so much in propaganda. One party, PAS party, of course, with under the leadership of Maya Sandu, is pro-European, pro-democracy. Every other single party was pro-Russian. One of them is under the leadership of Shore, the one who doesn't even speak Romanian. He only speaks Russian. Their logo is essentially a star with the Soviet Union, symbol in it. And they were pushing to win. And so all of those exit polls were showing that it is so close, that the difference will be in like single digits in all of this. But despite cyber attacks and bomb threats at polling stations, not just in Moldova, but in Brussels, Rome, Bucharest, Alicante, in Asheville, North Carolina, Moldova's pro-EU PAS party, led by President Maya Sandu, won decisively. And she has the full majority in the parliament, too, with 48.4% of votes counted. This was, I have to update it, was at 96% votes counted. PAS secured majority in parliament, 52 of 101 seats. Altogether, the latest is 50 percentages is what she won. Moscow's $100 million investment in disinformation and disruption failed. Moldova continues on its European path. And at this point, again, Madam Ursula von der Leyen, get them inside EU. What you waiting for? Your excuse, okay, for Ukraine is because they're at war and you're an economic, right? European Union is an economic union. It's not a defensive union. This is NATO. So it's not Schengen with open borders. European Union is economic union. So get Moldova in. Help them out. Please. Guys are fighting. You know who wants to be part of European Union? And this is very new. Remember Armenia? That is, according to Trump, fighting, everybody from, what was it? Cambodia and Azerbaijan and Narnia and stars and moon and sun and Neptune. Armenian government, in all seriousness, formally has declared today its intention to pursue EU accession, which is huge. A major step signaling its democratic ambitions and distancing from Moscow. This is a very big achievement today. Again, Madam Ursula von der Leyen, I have so many requests for you today. Get them, please. I mean, you understand Armenia and France, how they're connected, and yeah, this would really screw Putin. Again, look at the maps. Look how close everything is. Now, something that went under the radar and completely not reported on September 12th. You know what happened on September 12th? We didn't know about it, but in St. Petersburg, they hosted an international league of anti-globalists. They call it Paladins, a Kremlin-backed gathering of far-right and fascist groups. Here's a picture. You know where they came from? From Spain, France, Hungary, Mexico, South Africa, Brazil, Argentina, and others. Key figures, as you see here, right in the middle with the beard. Alexander Dugin, blocked me on X. Oligarch Konstantin Malofeev, foreign delegates such as Spain's Falange Española de las Jones, and Francis Ivan Benedetti, well, it's very French, who openly calls himself an anti-Semite. The agenda: opposing globalization, migration, defending traditional values. In reality, it is part of Russia's strategy to fracture European unity and undermine support for Ukraine. By the way, when that group was this was in Mariinsky Theater, middle of St. Petersburg, all the fancy schmancy. When they were asked to confirm this, they said, "Oh, we don't know. Nothing happened." Although you see the picture, it has the date on it and everything. So, Brian Edward says, maybe Trump watched The Fifth Element with Mila Jovovich, and this was real. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe he can just pronounce Azerbaijan. Medbets. Yes, Medbets. Yes. Woohoo, Moldova. Yes, good for media. Yeah, so it's really, there's so many bonuses given to European Union. They just have to act upon it. I hope they will. Now, let's get to some quick national news. Firearms exports. The Trump administration lifted Biden-era restrictions on civilian firearms exports, removing barriers on sales to 36 high-risk countries, previously flagged for diversion to criminals and terrorists. So, money rules. Let me remove it because it keeps buzzing. Shutdown impact. If all of this happens and goes through on October 1st, the Department of Health and Human Services warned it would furlough 41% of its staff in the event of a governmental shutdown, halting public health messaging, contractor oversight, and some medical research. Now, what I think we'll do, and Trump really plays into shutting down the government. Remember when he called upon the agencies to prepare to fire people permanently? I think he will use that to do that. I also think this will then ultimately lead to martial law. But again, I'm optimistic realist, and let's keep it. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope to be wrong. Let's keep the faith. Now, remember last year when we had President Biden. At this point, more importantly, we had Pete Buttigieg overseeing transportation. Remember when they passed this big bill to take care of travelers with wheelchairs or on wheelchairs, where they pushed airlines first to provide wheelchairs, but also to be held accountable for any damage caused to any wheelchairs of the passengers. Because most often, somebody is traveling, perhaps they have an aide with them, perhaps not. They arrive, something is damaged, they literally cannot move anywhere from that airport. And so when it comes to delays, like when the wheelchair is requested, but it's not there on time, they're missing their flight and all of that was regulated. It was a big bill. I was at the White House. They all signed it. We all clapped. We were happy campers. Today, the Transportation Department announced it will not enforce parts of Biden-era rule that expanded consumer protections for airline passengers using wheelchairs. As to New York City, Mayor Eric Adams officially dropped out of mayoral race. Michigan church attack, gunmen rammed a truck into LDS church in Grand Blanc Township, opened fire on worshippers, and set building ablaze. At least 4 victims were killed. The gunman died after police shootout. As to hostage release, an American citizen detained in Afghanistan was released by Taliban. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced. By the way, of Taliban shut down the internet today. You know why? Because they attributed to, they implement morality measures with multiple networks disconnected through the morning in a stepwise manner. Telephone services are currently also impacted. So you got to be moral, just be excluded. And women, they can't answer even when they called upon. They can look at any man. And remember that story I covered? Horrible. So again, remember, this circus travels. As to Pentagon briefing, Trump tomorrow will address all the generals and admirals who come to Virginia from all over the world. He will do so with Pete Hexas, and now the news is that this will be televised. Okay. Corn dog recall. If you're a lover of corn dogs, the USDA recalled 58 million pounds of corn dogs after reports came through that they may contain wood fragments. And AI in Hollywood, a virtual actress, Tilly Norwood, she doesn't exist, not a real person, but is being courted by major talent agencies. So all you have to do is just create some fake person, and you'll be popular. Now, as to defense and security, Air Force training revamp, the service launches BMT 2.0 on October 7th, adding more physical training, combat teamwork drills, and trimming traditional drill and dorm routines. All this is pretty much designed not to offer women any different statistics to be, striving for, and this will be all male-oriented. DOJ warning, a DOJ video featured Pam Bondi declared that under President Trump's leadership, there is zero tolerance for political violence and domestic terrorism. She's deploying federal agents to ICE facilities. If you so much as touch one of our federal officers, you will go to prison. As to Oregon versus National Guard, or Gardner, Oregon sued to block Trump's deployment of 200 National Guard troops to Portland. Governor Tina Kotek said Trump may have confused 2020 riot footage with current-day Portland, which reporters described as placid over the weekend. And there were a lot of memes, like, Portland is debating, are we going to have, this type of latte or this type of latte? So we need National Guard to come help us figure it out. As to sports and culture, Ryder Cup, Trump obviously attended that situation there, which did not go the way it was planned. Obviously, they really wanted in upstate New York for Team USA to win, which they ended up not doing. Team USA fell short despite late rally. Europe clinched 15-13 win. It's 11th in the last 15 cups. European captain Luke Donald became just the second to win back-to-back titles. The event was marred by abusive fan behavior. Rory McIlroy's wife was struck by a thrown drink. U.S. players also faced criticism for a new pay scheme. So altogether, MAGA went berserk and started throwing drinks at Europeans. As to Super Bowl 2026, today is the big debate. Bad Bunny will headline the next halftime show, fresh off a sold-out Puerto Rico residency. He said, quote, "This is for my people, my culture, and our history. Go on and tell your grandma that we'll be at the Super Bowl halftime show," unquote. I think it's pretty cool. MAGA thinks it's horrible. Hence, all this hoopla today on the internet. Now, as to quick global news, of course, White House meeting was. I have a readout on Trump Gaza, but what Trump also did, he said at the Oval Office, remember Israel bombed Qatar? Remember Israel said that Trump greenlit this operation to bomb hotel in Doha where Hamas leaders were meeting, and Israel said this was in accordance with the White House. Well, today Trump wanted to take the blame off of him forever. So he literally called the leader of Qatar, made Netanyahu apologize in front of him to Qatari leader and said, "I'll never do it. I will respond your territorial integrity. I'll be a good guy." And yeah, so that's what Netanyahu had to perform today. Now, more on that in a second. So Vietnam Typhoon Bualoi struck Vietnam's central coast, killing at least 22 people and leaving widespread flooding and damage. So China-Russia travel, a new mutual travel visa-free deal looks very loop-sided. So Russia, that is connected to China in that exact place, opened the border to Russians and Chinese to travel visa-free. But turns out Chinese don't really want to come to Russia, but a lot of Russians really, really want to go to China. And so much so that they now impose 25-kilogram ban that whatever you buy in China, it should not go beyond that mark. Now, as to China corruption sentence, check this out. Former Agriculture Minister Tang Ringjian was sentenced to death today for taking $38 million in bribes. $38 million in bribes between 2007 and 2024. If he shows good behavior, the sentence will be commuted for life imprisonment after 2 years. As to China and Taiwan, Beijing reiterated its first red line in U.S.-China relations, the One China principle, and firm opposition to Taiwan's independence. So again, please watch the interview that I mentioned. So, South Korea and U.S. deal, remember, touted by the White House, touted by Trump. We have a big deal. We have a lot of investment from South Korea. Well, Seoul said that they unfortunately cannot cash out $350 billion to Trump. So he would sit down with them to negotiate tariffs. They cannot afford this type of bride. So for that point, advisors say they're looking for alternative solutions. Can you judge them? As to Israel-Hamas, Hamas armed wing claims it lost contact with 2 hostages today during Israel's assault on Gaza City and asked Israel to halt operations. The IDF has not commented. Doctors Without Borders suspended activities in Gaza City, citing staff safety. And also, obviously, there is starvation in Gaza, and kids are at this point where their own bodies are eating their own organs. Sorry for getting graphic, but what would help in this case is that peanut butter, that it's enriched with minerals and vitamins, and just to help those kids sustain themselves until they get proper nourishment. And this has been banned now by Israel because this is now seen by them officially as a luxury meal. As to Africa renewables, the EU pledged $638 million for green energy projects across at least 8 African countries, from rural electrification in Cameroon to high-voltage transmission line in Ivory Coast, as part of an EU-South Africa push before November G20 in Cape Town. Also, what happened in Ethiopia, 3 days ago, Russia and Ethiopia signed an agreement where Russia will be building the first nuclear plant in Ethiopia. Do you really want Russia to control any nuclear plants in Africa? Questionable. Now, Colombia, U.S., Washington revoked the visa of Colombian President Gustavo Petro, citing reckless and provoking remarks, of course, at the New York United Nations General Assembly. He was calling for Trump to be investigated for bombing the ships from Venezuela, for deporting people without any proper justification. And then so his visa was revoked and he was, so to speak, sent out. Now, am I a fan of him? Certainly no. He was saying all that while standing next to Rogers. And yes, that's what his name is. The singer, and promoting pro-Russian views. So in that regard, I mean, really less than respected gentleman. But altogether, does he deserve to say what he thinks? Yes, and especially when he's addressing United Nations General Assembly. So just because United Nations, of course, is international land, so to speak, but it is located in the United States. It's United States now controlling the visa regime because people are saying what United States doesn't like. That's certainly not part of the deal, right? Now, as to Afghanistan hostage release, Taliban freed U.S. citizen Amir Amiri, detained since December. Both Washington and Kabul thanked Qatar for mediating. He is the 5th American released this year. I just had that readout earlier, right? So now let's talk about Trump-Gaza peace plan. Trump Gaza, period. I'm not going to play the videos of Trump performing all this show. I don't know about you. I was never entertained or enthused and amused by all this. But I'm really bored at this point. I'm bored of this performances at the Oval Office, of this lies and all that. So let's just stick to the facts, shall we? So Trump unveiled what he called comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict. So it's 20 steps. At its core, the proposals envisions Gaza transformed into de-radicalized terror-free zone, rebuilt under international oversight and economic investment. He's also stating there, and this is in the readout by the White House, that it's not going to be democracy or anything political, it's going to be technocracy. This will be rebuilt behind this lofty language, right, lie political, practical, and credibility challenges that make the plan difficult to imagine or being workable. So essentially, they're creating a board, and the board will be overseen by Trump. He's like head of the board or chair of this board. Under Trump blueprint, both sides would agree to an immediate ceasefire. Israel would hold operations and begin staged withdrawals, while all hostages, alive and deceased, would be released within 72 hours. In return, Israel would free roughly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. Hamas members would disarm and pledge peaceful coexistence, would be granted amnesty, while those who prefer to leave Gaza would be offered safe passage abroad. Gaza, in this vision, would be governed by a temporary technocratic Palestinian Committee, TPC, overseen by an International Board of Peace, chaired personally by Donald Trump, and supported by figures such as former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair. An International Stabilization Force, ISF, trained and backed by United States and regional partners, would take responsibility for internal security and border control alongside vetted Palestinian police forces. Let's stop right here. Why Tony Blair? Before we knew, it reminds me on the movie, while you sleep or whatever, while you slept or whatever, when the guy was like in coma and they were fighting for him. Years ago, when Project 2025 was being written, also Tony Blair's think tank in England was working on a project of Trump Gaza. It also includes Elon Musk Center of Innovation in that Gaza. So Tony Blair used Boston Consulting Group, BCG, to help him put that plan together. So that's why when the rumors came out and I reported on it, because I saw that plan, it was pretty legit. This all just got confirmed. So he's overseeing this, or would be overseeing all this development. Without any further ado, this is the map of this new Gaza thing. It would have a new port, a new airport. Essentially, it would just resemble just UAE. Like they have the palm thing with like made up islands. That's those on the left, the dots. Those are the Gaza, Trump, Riviera, and islands. Then on top, you see here the Elon Musk Smart Manufacturing Zone and a variety of other zones. So Trump's plan also includes sweeping economic development package, rebuilding infrastructure, attracting international investment, and establishing a special economic zone to spur jobs and growth. The ultimate goal, he says, is a modern, prosperous Gaza with a reformed Palestinian Authority eventually assuming governance and perhaps paving the way toward Palestinian statehood. Now, they said that Palestinians should not be leaving, but they can get employed, like, cleaners, because somebody has to service all this, right? Now, proposal raises more questions than answers. Placing Trump himself at the helm of Gaza's transitional governance undermines any claim to neutrality and risks alienating both Israelis and Palestinians as well as international stakeholders. Now, if you watch this conference, first of all, Netanyahu and Trump did not take any questions, and Netanyahu looked less than enthused. Obviously, for Israel, it's great to have United States there because they will be the stabilizers, but also they know that Trump is not going to leave. The amnesty for disarmament deal with Hamas assumes a level of compliance from a designated terrorist organization that past experience suggests is improbable. Now, the concept of an international stabilization force recalls earlier peacekeeping experiments that failed under political pressure or lack of mandate. Without concrete commitments from troop contributions or regional guarantors, the ISF risks being little more than a talking point. Meanwhile, the prisoner exchange ratios and promises of rapid reconstruction could prove politically unpalatable in Israel, while Palestinians are likely to view statehood as indefinitely postponed under US designated framework. Having said that, I don't really understand. Maybe you know more. I don't know why President Macron is saying, I salute President Trump's commitment to ending the war. I hope that Israel will resolutely commit to this basis. Hamas has no choice but to immediately release all hostages and follow the plan. These elements must enable in-depth discussion with all concerned partners to build lasting peace in the region based on the two-state solution and the elements agreed upon by 142 states at the United Nations at the initiative of France and Saudi Arabia. President Macron, with all love and respect, they're not talking about two-state solution. They're talking about Trump Gaza. I mean, same as Ukraine is passing the Nobel Peace Prize to praise Trump. I mean, okay. Trump's plan combines familiar peace process language, ceasefire, prisoner swaps, aid, international monitors with highly improbable elements centered around his personal role. More than realistic roadmaps, it reads as a political document crafted to project leadership and control. For many observers, it will reinforce the view that Washington under Trump is less a neutral broker than an actor seeking to reshape the conflict for its own optics. Now, with all this quote is the main takeaway from all the theater today, where Trump said, quote, if Hamas rejects the deal, which is always possible, as you know, Bibi, you'll have our full backing to do what you got to do. You have our full backing to do what you got to do. This is the main takeaway. So take the tanks, roll over this 500,000 people. Now, as to what's coming up this week, Friday jobs report might be delayed if the government is shut down. If not, it will come on Friday. Forecast is 43,000 jobs added and unemployment holding at 4.3%. But we will see what will come down to, because they already have announced that this will be very much delayed if the government is shut down. And if you are a fan of Taylor Swift, then this Friday comes her 12th album, The Life of a Showgirl. Not just music, it's an economic wave. The Eras Tour grossed $2.2 billion directly, with fans spending billions more on travel, hotels, and food. Album will have 12 tracks, and celebrations will be nationwide. Release parties at theaters, including new music video screenings and exclusive footage. So if you're a Swiftie, get ready, get an outfit, and you're going to be busy. All right? That's all I have for you for today, because I had to cut the bullshit, you know? We could talk here for 2-3 hours, but we got to cut the bullshit somewhere. And it was so much noise today, really so much noise. Okay, so what I encourage you to do, if you missed out on Friday newsletter, please go ahead and read it. I wrote there more about Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, visiting London. They obviously, the Prime Minister of Australia was there, Iceland, and him. They had a conversation together. They also signed documents together. Also, there's a big development in England, in the UK. They are rolling out this Brit ID. By the way, the tech behind Brit ID is done by the son of Tony Blair. And this Brit ID is installed in your phone by police. It's essentially monitoring everything and anything in your phone. They say this is here to combat illegal migration. People will use it from benefits to tax to travel. Very slippery thing. If you are from Great Britain, and tell us what you think about it, and provide your reasons if you love it, because it kind of sounds kind of tricky. But altogether, when I kind of was looking more into it, and Sky News, I understand Sky News is Murdoch television, and they're really sort of pushing forward the idea that if the election were today, 311 seats would be by Farage, and this is very pro-right wing situation, sort of, and England is succumbing to this. let us know how you experience it, because from afar it kind of sounds like little America, and I think you're a bit smarter than that. No, that's my little observation. Michael says Israel banning peanut butter product for aid is disgusting, right? Like seeing it as luxury. Like, what are you talking about? Technocracy, it looks like Elon might get to try their hands on governing, right? Yeah, because like that's what they've been creating throughout this entire time in Silicon Valley, right? This is what Peter Thiel is advocating for, that you have technocracies, like cities essentially driven by technology. And then remember Larry David, the Oracle guy, at the White House, saying that if we install those things in everybody's device, right, those sort of apps that monitor people, not just where they are and what they do, but what they say and type on their phones, then people will start behaving. So all of this is very kind of weird. Edward says, can you explain the Posse Comitatus Act in 1878? Yeah, essentially, to make it simplified, I will research it and really tell you all of it tomorrow. From what I understand, again, it's the rule that rules over our Pentagon or our defensive forces, prohibiting them to go against the citizens they protect, right? Because our defensive forces are essentially positioned toward defending us against the any forces, right? Of course, it could come from within, but mostly foreign entities. It's not here to regulate internal. Of course, we have a civil war, that's a different story, but they should not be pointing any gun or anything on the civilians whom they're supposed to protect. And so when Trump says, I'm deploying National Guard to Portland, and you can use any force you see necessary. So this sort of hints on the idea of our military pointing guns and going against the civilians, which is really then goes against this act. But again, let me research, and I'll have the full readout tomorrow. Thank you for bringing that up, Edward. Technocracy. Hi, Lindy. Just Lindy. Technocracy looks like Elon. Yes. Hey, Ignacio. Hello. I read it. Good. Perfect. I feel a bit saner now. Oh, thank you, Michael. Thank you. Elon is trying to finish what his grandfather started. Sean. Yes, absolutely. And he started that in Canada. He went to jail in Canada because he was very Hitler-esque and promoting fascism and headlining parties and whatnot. And then he went to Pretoria, to South Africa, and continued his work there. So guy literally physically went to jail in Canada for that. Edwards, you're right. It resolved civil war, remaining troops from South, and making illegal quarter troops in U.S. states. Yeah. Bonnie says, have to head out, watch the video. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you for being here. Did you look into Horodenka, a beautiful little town? Hope to visit one day. Okay, let me screenshot and I'll look now. Point taken. Point taken. Okay, guys. I hope that everybody's a bit more sane now, like Michael, you just mentioned. I really encourage you to be choosy as to what you consume, because we're so careful with what we eat. Be as careful about what you feed your mind with, because this is not, it's also part of your physical health. Your mental health is part of your physical health. It affects, it really is much connected. Of course, if we're sick, our mental health suffers. But if our mental health suffers, our physical health suffers. And this is a very long-term situation. So you got to keep your head on a swivel. You have to shut off this news. See it for the theater it is. As to Trump, Gaza, Hamas is not going to agree to it. I don't see Israel agreeing to it. I see Netanyahu, making the pilgrimage to D.C., to get more arms, to have more deals, to get the support and all that, yada, yada. But I don't think them actually being very enthused about it. So everybody's trying Trump's ego. I'm more honestly concerned about that meeting tomorrow. Of course, the government will shut down, but I see it very much together, aligned with the meeting. the rumor was that the martial law would come October 1st, tomorrow's the last day of September. So very much concerned about that speech to the military. Is it going to result in Trump physically pulling all the leadership from Eastern Europe, eastern flank of NATO, because they're physically in DC? That's one story that I hear. Another story is they will take personal oath to Trump, which is not going to be televised. They're going to televise some bullshit and then, take the oath. Will that, result in martial law? Will the governmental shutdown play into it? We will see more. Tomorrow we'll have more clarity, most importantly on October 1st. So let's keep our head on a swivel. Do what makes you feel better, okay? Because you got to be alert to take care of you, take care of others. All right, and read the Sunday edition if you haven't yet. It's not just for Sundays. It's about decency. It's about taking care of yourself. So go ahead and read it. It's in your mailbox. Okay? All right, guys. Thank you for being here. Have a peaceful night. I'll be posting on Blue Sky. On X, not so much. So if you don't follow me there, please connect on Blue Sky. Say hi if you are joining there for the first time. Be kind to one another. Be kind to yourself. That's the most important thing. All right. Have a lovely week. Sean says, I hope to see you tomorrow. Yeah, week is not over. Yeah. Please reach out to Lev Parnas. Would be amazing part of the team. Malcolm Nance. Yeah, I saw a lot of people contacting these guys and tagging me. Yeah, I really don't know what's about. Okay, and I'll look in Horodenko. Hey, Aster, thank you for being here. Okay, guys, I'm gone. Have a peaceful night. Keep your head on a swivel, and I see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Newsletter is coming shortly. Bye.